They're trying to piece all these things together to see who else might be associated with these men and how else they might be associated with others around the world, also including Osama bin Laden. There's a dual purpose. They've got to prove the case against bin Laden, but more importantly, they've got to find these accomplices, these associates, to thwart any other plots against other U.S. targets. Aaron.
Eileen, thanks. Eileen O'Connor, among the group of CNN correspondents and producers who are working all around the clock on the investigative side of this. Not far away at the Pentagon, the death toll remains at 188. It's not likely to change very much. Unlike the World Trade Center location, the Pentagon location seems a bit more secure in terms of the missing and the dead. That 188 number includes the people who are on the plane that hit the building, and it also includes the hijackers. And if you want to see that, then perhaps we should put a different number there. Some to think about. In any case, the crews at the Pentagon continue to work around the clock, digging through the mess and looking for more bodies. We learned today, by the way, it's among the most unsettling parts of what went on Tuesday morning, that President Bush did in fact give an okay to shoot down any unauthorized commercial jet that seemed to be approaching the White House or the Capitol. CNN military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre has been working on that part of the story and other matters coming out of the Pentagon today. Jamie.
Pentagon sources tell CNN it was only after the third hijacked plane slammed into the Pentagon that President Bush gave the agonizing order to shoot down United Airlines Flight 93 with 45 people on board if it got close enough to threaten Washington.
I gave our military the orders necessary to protect Americans, do whatever it would take to protect Americans, and of course that's difficult.
The President made the decision on my recommendation as well, wholeheartedly concurred in the decision he made, that if the plane would not divert, if they wouldn't pay any attention to instructions to move away from the city, as a last resort, our pilots were authorized to take them out.
The Boeing 757 crashed in Pennsylvania, apparently brought down when passengers tried to overpower the hijackers before the grim orders had to be carried out. Soon, the whole country would become a no-fly zone enforced by U.S. military fighters. In response to the unprecedented hijackings, the FAA ordered all flights to land. And this replay of FAA radar data shows the amazing clearing of the skies as 4,500 blue dots disappear. In retrospect, Pentagon officials say there was almost no time to react. It wasn't until United Airlines Flight 172 struck the second tower of the World Trade Center at 9:02 a.m. that it was clear the United States was under terrorist attack. Because of its peacetime posture, the U.S. military was simply not in position to respond.
Anyone who has looked around the skies over the past several years knows that we do not keep aircraft in the air to anticipate some local situation like that.
According to a timeline provided by Pentagon officials, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, was notified at 9:25 a.m. that a third plane was hijacked and heading toward Washington. 10 minutes later, at 9:35 a.m., three F-16s screamed at supersonic speeds to Washington from Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, covering the 130 miles in 14 minutes. But the Pentagon was hit just 3 minutes later at 9:38 a.m. And by the time this F-16 showed up at 9:49 a.m., the fighters could only circle and look for other hostile planes. But even if the fighter jets had arrived on time, downing a jetliner over the congested urban area that surrounds the Defense Department might well have resulted in higher casualties than the 124 people killed in the fortress-like Pentagon.
Military pilots patrolling the Washington-New York air corridor do not have carte blanche to shoot down any suspect plane. That still has to be approved by the president on a case-by-case basis. But if an airliner is hijacked and it's headed for a densely populated area, the White House is ready to sacrifice the civilians on board to potentially save more lives on the ground. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, The Pentagon.
Jamie, I lost your audio for a second, so I didn't hear the end of it, but let me throw out one quick question, and hopefully I'll be able to hear the answer along with our viewers. Had there ever been a case, to your knowledge, where it was even came close. No, I'm sorry. On we go. We got a problem. Looking ahead now, Congress will get back to work tomorrow. They got a lot of work to do. And first on the agenda, as you can imagine, is taking up a series of bills to deal with anti-terrorism. First of all, there are many lawmakers who want to ease the restrictions on law enforcement to allow law enforcement officials to track down those responsible. For example, make it a little easier to tap phone lines would be one. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Bob Graham also plans to introduce a bill this week creating an Office of Counterterrorism. That office would direct both the CIA's and the FBI's efforts to fight terrorism. Lawmakers are also looking at efforts to stimulate the economy. I don't think anyone really has a good handle on, beyond the airline industry, how badly the economy is going to be hit by all of this. The airlines are one issue. Insurance companies are going to be hit badly. Possibility of new round of tax cuts as well. As we indicated, Congress is going to have to make some very difficult decisions, as always is the case when you have to balance national security, our collective safety, the safety of all citizens here, and individual freedoms. Senator Bob Graham, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Intelligence, will be one of the key players in crafting those laws. And Senator Graham joins us tonight. It's nice to talk to you, sir.
Good.
Thank you. Been an awful week for you, hasn't it?
It's been a week either to remember or a week to forget.
Yeah, it's hard to know sometimes. I think forget would work for me. I want to get into some specific things, but just in a general way. Do you expect that on the floor of the Senate and the House in the weeks to come, there will be this kind of fierce political debate about trying to find the right balance between national safety and individual freedom?
There will be a debate. I'm not certain how fierce it is because there is such a strong momentum in the country to protect ourselves against this new, very different threat for Americans. What we've got to do is find the balance that will increase our security, our ability to know and intercept terrorists, while at the same time not ourselves becoming like the terrorists. We don't want to lose our individual rights, our freedoms, what makes us Americans. I think we can find that balance, but we're going to have to be careful.
It's a lot harder to find that balance in a kind of unbalanced time that we live in, where we, just a few blocks behind me there, that center, that area keeps smoldering. I mean, there is a very intense feeling in Washington. And that I don't say it is dangerous, it can be dangerous.
Yes, there is a sense of anxiety. It's not just in Washington. I'm talking from Orlando, Florida tonight. It's here, it's all over the country. Some of the things that we're going to be doing are just common sense. For instance, our wiretap laws are based on the way telephones were used 20 or 30 years ago. They don't take account of some of the modern technologies. As an example, it's not unusual today for a person to use a half dozen different telephones, cell phones, phones at the office, phones at home. Yet our wiretap law makes it difficult to be able to get access to all of those phones at one time, so that whatever phone the person you're trying to surveil is using, you are listening to what they're saying. There are some other provisions which are executive and do not involve changes in the law as such. As an example, the CIA has had a policy since the mid-1990s that it will not employ a person, a foreign national, to do work with our intelligence agencies if they have a bad background.
Is that a bad idea?
Well, it's not a practical idea in this sense. If you're trying to hire somebody who you hope will be able to get close to bin Laden or another terrorist so that we can find out what's on their mind, what they're likely to do, you're not going to go to the local monastery to find those people. You're going to be looking for persons who've had some prior association and therefore have some basis of confidence and affinity so that they can get inside the terrorist cell and get the information that you need. And
I'm sorry, it's bad guys that lead you to bad guys.
Yeah, you're going to have to get people who got some dirt under their fingernails and probably some bad reports in their background.
How about I think it was in 1976 that President Ford signed the executive order banning assassination. I'm not sure of the year. I think it was about right, though. Should American agents or the people that are hired by American agents be allowed, as the Israelis do, to go in and assassinate people they don't like, don't want?
Yeah, the answer is yes, but it's not as if they're going to have open season. Prior to President Ford signing that order, the president, on a case-by-case basis, made a determination as to whether a representative of the United States would be authorized to use lethal force against a third party, a non-U.S. citizen. What President Ford did is really put handcuffs on his own administration, and subsequent presidents have accepted those handcuffs. I believe now is the time to take those handcuffs off and let President Bush make a judgment on a case-by-case basis as to whether it's in the national interest to use lethal force to remove someone who might be organizing a terrorist assault against citizens of the United States.
There's a kind of uncomfortable irony here, isn't there, Senator, that in just the last few weeks before the tragedy of Tuesday, a good many American officials were very critical of the Israelis for doing exactly what you're now saying the U.S. government should be allowed to do.
Well, I was not one of those Americans who was so critical.
I'm not suggesting that.
Because the reality is, if you're dealing with a terrorist, the only effective defense you have is good intelligence that leads you to who they are, where they are, what they're planning to do, and then the capability to apply that good intelligence in order to take them out before they can commit another September 11th. And if that means that you have to take them out through an assassination method, I think as painful as that is, if the choice is that or the rubble of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, I would have to opt for the assassination.
Senator Graham, you have a fascinating and difficult balancing act in the days ahead. We appreciate your time. We hope, and as this process unwinds, we'll have a chance to talk again. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I look forward to that, and I particularly look forward to talking about why it's going to be so important to put somebody in charge of our national anti-terrorism programs, because I'm afraid we're going to find that one of the reasons that Tuesday was as tragic as it was is because we didn't have our governmental agencies as coordinated as they should have been.
We'll talk more about that first question next time we talk.
Good. Thank you,
sir. Senator Bob Graham joining us from Orlando, Florida tonight, the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee. The Bush administration was out in full force today. It was Sunday. The talk shows were full of administration officials making their case, trying to gain support for the president's position. CNN's Kelly Wallace from the White House tonight. More on that.
After huddling with his national security team at Camp David, President Bush returned to the White House with the First Lady and urged Americans to try to get on with their lives.
Tomorrow, the good people of America go back to their shops, their fields, American factories, and go back to work. Our nation was horrified, but it's not going to be terrorized.
Mr. Bush in a 15-minute session with reporters showing so many different faces. Disbelief that suicide bombers could pummel into buildings filled with innocent people. Anger when asked about suspected terrorist Osama bin Laden's claim he was not involved, and resolve to win the war.
They have roused a mighty giant, and make no mistake about it, we're determined.
The president's words, part of a full-court administration offensive to reassure a jittery public.
We're pursuing over 40,000 leads.
They can't destroy America.
Things have changed since last Tuesday. The world's shifted in some respects.
The administration facing a delicate balancing act, encouraging an anxious country to go back to work while making the case its campaign against terrorists and those who harbor them will not be an overnight solution.
It will take time. It's not a matter of days or weeks. It's years. It's going to take the support of the American people, and I have every confidence it'll be there.
The support is there now. In a